Thank you for joining me this week on Tears to Wells, another great podcast scheduled for you today. I think we're going to cover some great material, and so I'm so excited that you were able to join me during this hour. Last week, I had a great guest, Mark Tossell, all the way from Sydney, Australia, joined us, and he was really instrumental in talking about something that's very, very important, and that's depression among Christian workers and those who are in ministry and in depression in general. So I'm so glad he took time to be with us last week, and I really enjoyed that interview, and I hope you did too. Again, I hope all of these podcasts are a blessing to you. Each week they come out. One of the things that you can do that would be a great blessing is if you could like the video. Always when you like it, it generates more traffic and more interest, and more people get to see it. And then if you've received a blessing for it, I think it'd be wise to share it with somebody else. And so many of you have shared these videos, and I appreciate that. Sometimes I see when people share them, and it really is a great encouragement. Well, today I want to continue on the theme of the holidays, and today I want to talk about grief and loss during the holidays. What does grief and loss look like during the holidays? You know, there's potentially no worse time for people who've suffered loss or grief than the holidays. The holidays are so difficult for people who haven't suffered loss and grief, but even for those who have, it brings on a little bit more of a burden and a little bit different feelings. You know, for a person who's suffered loss and grief, there's some dangerous times during the year. And I'm just going to run through a couple of these that are kind of danger times during the year, because what these times do is they bring back a lot of memories of the person we lost, memory of the relationship we lost. So birthdays can be a dangerous time of the year. When birthdays pop up, it's a time when our loved one is on our mind a little bit more intense and can bring on a little bit of difficulty in processing that and so forth. Anniversaries, and again, the first year of any kind of loss, all of these will be a first. It will be a first birthday without the loved one. It'll be a first anniversary without the loved one. But anniversaries can bring back that sentiment of that person, that lost love, the person that you loved with all of your heart no longer here. Special dates experienced together, the birth of the children. Every time one of the birthdays of the kids passes by, it's a reminder of something you experienced together. Maybe some of you are like I am, and you journal everything, and you know when you had your first date or when the engagement was, and as each one of these special dates pass, it'll have the potential for a little bit of melancholy, a little bit of sadness, a little bit of just re-experiencing the loss again. I'm thinking of other special dates will have that effect. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. These will be other times where you'll struggle with the loss of a loved one. A season when the loss occurred. You know, this past year, it was our first year through Karen's loss, and right about I would say mid-November, I started to feel blue again and melancholy, and just out of nowhere, I thought I was doing really good, and then out of nowhere, I kind of, for lack of a better term, backslid into some type of a funk, a depression. As I started to analyze it, and as I started to think, I remembered this is about the same time last year, this season right here, that Karen started to skid in her health, and her health started to fail real quick. And to be quite frank with you, Karen deteriorated in probably 3 to 4 weeks, and before I had a grip on what was happening, I was saying goodbye to her. So this season that came up was again a reminder of that. I started to feel melancholy and blue again. And then, of course, the holiday season. And that's what we're going to focus on today, the holiday season, how the holiday season can bring up extra problems, extra feeling, intense feeling, and even borderline depression. Now, I really believe that eventually many of us will get beyond some of that, and the holidays and different days will begin to normalize. We're going to actually talk about how to do that a little bit later in the podcast today. But one of the reasons why the holidays are so difficult is because traditions become a reminder. You know, during the holiday season, we have so many traditions that we acquire, and most of those traditions involve the loved one that passed away. Either that person was the one that organized it, or that person was the one that started that tradition or was involved in that tradition. And so these will be reminders of that person, and it has the potential to bring up nostalgia and melancholy and even depression. Events and parties that we're invited to are going to be a reminder of our loss and grief. And we're going to talk a little bit later on how to handle that. But every time we get an invitation to a party and we go, if we go, we're going alone this time. And we'll remember years when we had somebody to go with, or it'll just be a reminder of the fact that our significant loved one is no longer here. Holiday music in general is melancholy. And so as we drive around listening to holiday music, or as we go to the stores, it's on overhead, it's generally melancholy, and it brings back that loss. And then, of course, the weather during the wintertime, especially if you're here from the Midwest, it is dark, it is cold. The lack of sunlight puts us in a more melancholy disposition, and we're more prone to that. Now, I want you to just kind of bear with me for a minute as I kind of lay this out today on the podcast. But this holiday season is a danger time. But one of the things that is going to happen is your experience is probably going to shift from year to year. Let me give you an example of that. Last year, my wife passed away on December 12th. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. You talk about a horrible Christmas. I was still in shock. I was in disbelief. And to be quite frank with you, last Christmas and New Year's was just a blur. I don't really remember it. I remember a lot of people being there for us. I remember some wonderful people making Christmas special for Landon, but the actual time just kind of seems like a blur. And frankly, the time right after the funeral and all that just kind of seems like a blur to me. And I'm still trying to process that. But they always told me the first Christmas would be the most difficult one. Well, last Christmas was the first one. But to be frank with you, this was really the first Christmas that I am able to process life and this holiday without Karen. And so this one has had its moments of difficulty. And so the point I'm making is each year will be a little bit varied. And hopefully the further you get removed from the actual loss of a loved one, the more manageable it becomes. Now, you're going to hear this as I give these podcasts. You're going to hear this over and over. Everybody grieves differently. Some people are able to grieve once, bury it, and move on. I don't necessarily, that's not me. That's not my personality, but I can't judge a person for being that way. There's some people that are just wired that way. And so but in general, each year, the loss should be getting better. Now, I want to mention one thing. If I'm struggling 3 or 4 years out, I'm still having a tough time with every Christmas, I really do believe I need to reevaluate if I've made proper adjustments in my life. And so I just want to just kind of get you to think through where you're at right now. If it's the holiday season and you're still struggling with the loss of a loved one from 10, 15 years ago, I understand that. And we're going to address that here in a little bit. I understand some relationships are so deep and so loving that they will have a lifetime effect on somebody. But if they're still affecting you to the same degree of intensity, you've got to ask yourself, have you made the right kind of adjustments to cope and make that loss manageable? And so it's something that all of us need to take into consideration and into mind. So I just want to encourage you that I really believe that each year will get a little bit better. And I, from 1 year ago till today, I am much better in many, many ways. Now, again, this is the first Christmas I'm dealing without Karen, and it's in some areas it's more difficult. I'm feeling the melancholy on a different level than I was last year. But my hope is that every year it'll get a little bit better and manageable, and I want to put in strategies to make it better. I don't want every Christmas to be having a hard time with the loss. I don't want every Christmas. I still have a son, Landon, who I love with all my heart. I want him to enjoy the Christmas season. I have other relatives that I love, and I don't want to rain on their parade and their good season. So hopefully that's the case. Now, I want to talk to you about an epiphany I had, if you want to call that an epiphany. And what I want to talk about here is moving more from remembering to honoring, I had a kind of an epiphany, and I hate using that word because it sounds like it's so like magical or etherical or metaphysical. But I did have what we would call an epiphany. This past weekend was our church's children's Christmas program, and I was so honored to be a part of it. I had a wonderful time with that. I actually even had to audition to narrate it. I was the only one that auditioned, but they still had me do the part. Anyway, I was not aware of all the commitment behind it. Man, we had several rehearsals. We had several dress rehearsals, and the day before the program, we were going to have a full-scale dress rehearsal where everybody dressed in their costumes, everybody dressed in their outfits, and we were going to go through the program 2 times. It was a big deal. Well, it just happened to be on the anniversary of Karen's homegoing, which was December 12th. It was on her homegoing, and we had to make a decision. What do? Do I cancel this obligation so I could drive up to Karen's gravesite and be there on the anniversary of her homegoing? What do I do? So I thought that through, and I thought, wow, I've already given these good people my commitment, and I need to follow through with this commitment. So I said, here's what I'll do: is I'll pull Landon out of school 2 days, which he was totally happy about. We'll drive up to Northwest Indiana. We'll spend an evening with some friends, kind of reminiscing and reliving the journey and remembering Karen and remembering that experience. And then Friday, I'll spend a good portion of the day there at the cemetery. And then Saturday, I'll just continue with my obligation. You know, as I was in the rehearsal and doing the rehearsal with Landon and seeing him sing and us involved in that program, a spirit came over me that this right here brings great honor to Karen. Even in some ways, even more than visiting her gravesite. This right here honors her legacy. That we believe that this is this is her spirit. Her spirit was one of moving forward and going forward for the Lord and going forward in the midst of opposition. I think that great honor. Several people walked up to me. They knew that it was the anniversary of Karen's homegoing, and they came to me and even mentioned that. And I thought to myself, how honored Karen is that and I know she's in heaven, and I don't know all the dynamics behind that, but I thought this is a great way to bring honor, and it helped me understand that this is the direction I should be moving. I should be moving more from remembering Karen to honoring Karen. You know, remembering is about me. It's nostalgia. It's right, and I believe we should. I think it's unwise to try to bury the memory of people. I don't think that's healthy. But in my case, I think it was when one person is just remembering one person, that's nostalgia. Honoring is more about the lost loved one, and that's legacy. Talk about nostalgia and legacy. When it's just me remembering, that's more nostalgia. When it's me moving towards honoring, that is legacy, bringing her to the forefront. And that's really what we want. And so one of my goals this holiday season has been to shift more from remembering to honoring. And honoring is part of the remembering process. But again, as I mentioned, remembering is more about one person. Honoring is more about the legacy of the person. Now, not getting upset because people forget. Don't get upset because people forget, but help them and provide a way for them to remember. And that's one of the things that you're going to have to fight over and over and over again, is you're going to have to fight. And that's one of the reasons why we get so nostalgic at Christmas time, because we often, it'll be just a handful of people that will remember you and your lost loved one and make mention of it. And so some of us are fighting an internal battle. We're getting all upset, and we're getting angry that nobody remembers our loved one. And I want to just mention to you, instead of getting upset about people just being people, because that's what they do, they forget. That's why Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper. Jesus knew how we were. He knew, being the Son of God, the Almighty, the Creator, the Sustainer of life, he knew that people would forget about him. And so he instituted the Lord's Supper. So why do we get upset with people just being people? That's what people do. They forget. That's why it's incumbent upon us to help provide them a way to remember our loved ones. And so I want to challenge you maybe this holiday season to shift in that paradigm from remembering, being just a one person thing to honoring and being more about the loved one. Now, what I want to do now is I want to just and again, there's going to be a link. There's going to be a link when I'm done with this, where you can find some of this material. But I found online just some wonderful ways that you can honor your loved one this holiday season, where you can honor I think it's fabulous. Again, at the end of this podcast, there's going to be a link for it's to a website. They have 31 different ways you can honor your loved one during the holidays. I'm just going to give you a handful of these. I'll read a couple of them. I thought this was a great one. Purchase and light a special candle or small electric lamp to signify your loved one's presence in your heart and mind during the holidays. I thought that was fantastic. Having some type of special candle or electric lamp in the house that is turned on during the holidays as a reminder to you and others that come in of this person's life, their legacy, and even their presence in our heart. We never want to lose them from our heart. I always want to be close to our heart. This is a great one. Make a special holiday ornament using items from around your house or purchase from a craft store, and then hang it in a place of honor on your Christmas tree or your home. I thought that was a great one. Similar to a quilt that is pieced with different fabrics, you can make an ornament pieced on a little different mementos that belong to the person or things that were important to the person, and hang that on the tree as a way to honor them, as a way that when folks come over, they can see that and remember the loved one. We're moving from simply remembering to honoring. How about this one? This is great. Donate food or a meal to those who might otherwise go hungry during the Christmas season, and do it in the name of your loved one. Maybe show up to a charity and either give them money or a meal and tell them this is on behalf of your loved one. Moving from remembering to honoring. Purchase a gift with your loved one in mind. Wrap it, and give it to someone less fortunate in memory of your loved one. It goes similar with the donation of food. This one is a great one. Create a tribute video using computer software that incorporates your favorite photographs, existing video of your loved one. Set it to music and share it with family members and friends during the holidays. And again, this is about you being active, doing something, making a video memory and sharing it with friends and relatives, and bringing to the forefront one of the things I'm so pleased and I'm so grateful. And this is again goes on with my journey. The home church that I'm from, First Baptist in Hammond, has a tradition. It's a wonderful tradition that you can purchase flowers in honor of your loved one and put it in the vestibule of our hallway of our church, and signifying. You can do it on their behalf, and they put up a nice marquee. So as people come out and they see the fresh flowers in the marquee, they remember the loved one. And again, it's bringing honor to them, moving from remembering to honoring. And that helped me doing that. This was the first time that I was able to do that. I was able to do that last weekend for my beautiful wife. And again, it helped me understand this concept of simply remembering to honoring. Make a financial contribution to a cause your beloved would champion, whether it's in her name or his name or anonymously. My wife died of cancer. One of the things that's on my radar is giving to some type of cancer organization. There was a respite home in downtown Indy that helped with housing for people that were struggling with cancer disease. I'm talking out loud here, and I should probably do something in honor of Karen to that institution. Volunteer your time to help a local service organization or place of worship fulfill its mission to serving others. Funeral homes, cemeteries, and hospices often have holiday remembrance services for surviving families. The cemetery where my wife is buried, Memory Lane in Crown Point, has that. And perhaps you can attend or at least send an ornament for the tree that they'll decorate there. Adopt a less fortunate family during the holidays and through your church or charitable organization, and make their holiday brighter in memory of your loved one. These are all great ways to honor them. I'll give you this last one. Participate in a local walk or run that raises funds to support a cause your loved one would have championed. There's all types of 2Ks, 1K, 5Ks, marathons, half marathons. I'm not running a marathon or half marathon anytime soon, but those would be wonderful things to do in honor of your loved one. So that's just some thoughts today on how you can move from remembering to honoring, because remember, that's what we're trying to do this holiday season, and we're trying to get better perhaps every holiday in this area of suffering loss. Now, I want to talk about the need to modify existing traditions and create new traditions. Some traditions might be too painful. You may want to consider skipping on this year. You may consider maybe having others take on the tradition. Maybe if it's reading the Christmas story, maybe you do that every year, and that was Dad's job, and he's no longer here. Maybe we can divvy that up and have every child read one verse, or maybe we can pass that on to the oldest son. But maybe we'll have to think through those other traditions that we do. And then one of the things about starting new traditions and adjusting the ones we have is sometimes with existing traditions, when we lose a loved one, it brings back too many bad memories. We have to change the focus of the new traditions. One of the things that we did here recently, and I did not realize how emotional I was going to get, was we did the Christmas lights thing. Just kind of some insight stuff. I am not trying to get pity for myself and all that, but we grew up. It was a very difficult childhood. The first 10 years of my life, and about 11 or 12, my mom started coming to church and found a relationship with Jesus Christ, and my stepfather came to Christ, and things took a radical shift in our home about the age of 11 or 12, maybe 13. But prior to that, things were extremely difficult. And I don't want to focus on the bad, but we had so many Christmases that it seemed like there was either a fight, or there was a drunken stupor, or there was a problem there. And so growing up, Christmases weren't the best. It just seemed like somebody either passed away during Christmas, or there was violence, and Christmas. So I was a total Scrooge when we got married. And I tell you what, it just took 2 or 3 years of living with Karen, and she turned my world around in the area of Christmas. She was a Christmas girl. If she could start playing Christmas music the day after Halloween, I was such a strict person. I said no holiday music till the day after Thanksgiving, and every year I got more lax and more lax and more lax till literally, we started listening to Christmas music in October, and that was all Karen. She really, and one of the things we did every year was going around and looking at the Christmas lights. But deep down in my heart, I guess as I look back and reflect on our marriage, most of the Christmas time that we were together was about Karen. I knew she loved the holidays, and I tried to do everything I could to make the holiday special for her. The Christmas lights, and we had traditions of going up to Chicago at least once or twice during the Christmas season. We would go to the German market. We'd pick out one ornament. We'd go to Macy's, and at Macy's we'd get the old peppermint chocolate truffles that they used to have up there. And so all these little traditions that we had, but mainly they were all focused about making the Christmas time bright for her, because she loved it. Well, last night I decided, we gotta move on, and we gotta keep going forward. And going forward is probably a better term. But I took Landon out for Christmas lights last night, and I did not know what to expect. And so we're driving around listening to holiday music, Christmas music, and sure enough, 2 or 3 of the songs got me, and I had to pull the car over, and I did what we do sometimes during the holiday. We break down, and Landon did not see me, but as I was thinking, I'm like, I've got to do this. I've got to move on here, because the focus now is going to be different. The focus is not going to be on Karen from this time forward. The focus is going to be on Landon. And he needs to experience some great Christmases, and so he needs to experience that. So I just want to warn you about really taking some time to think through your traditions this holiday. Are there some traditions that you may need to skip this year? Might be a little bit too painful to do it. Maybe if your loss just happened, you may have to consider maybe just skipping that one this year. Maybe that one's just too fresh. The wound is too fresh to go through that. And you may want to consider doing something else. May want to consider handing them off to somebody else. And maybe it's somebody else's turn to cook the meal. Maybe it's somebody else's turn to hang the ornaments. Maybe it's somebody else's turn to sing the Christmas carols or read the Bible story. Or you may just need to change the focus and alter it a little bit. Or you may need to think through some new traditions. What are some new traditions that we can do together? Because we want to get through these holidays and enjoy them to the best that we can. Now, I want to talk in this last segment, I want to talk about during this Christmas holiday, the need to protect yourself, because here's what starts to happen. We start to get melancholy, borderline depressive, and life begins to happen to us, and life begins to take over, and things get more complicated. So one of the things when you're going through grief and loss during the holiday season is you really have to focus on protecting yourself. And let me give you some areas today where you probably need to be proactive in protecting yourself. The first one is social obligations. If you're not careful, again, grief and loss, I don't know what it was last year, but my fatigue level was off the charts. I mean, I could have been sick. I don't know, but I don't know if I've ever experienced fatigue on that level. Literally for 6 weeks after my wife passed away, I could barely just function around the house. And if I hadn't had my brother here, what a saint of God. My mother-in-law was here prior to that. But if I hadn't had help, I don't know where I would be. But there's something that is just so fatiguing about grief and loss and so forth. And so you're tired to begin with. And if you don't protect yourself, you're going to wear yourself down, and you're not able to fight back the depressive episodes. You're not able to push back on irrational thinking. You're not able to fight back on potential hazards and so forth. So we need to protect ourselves. Social obligations, I'll just stay there. I want to say this: you don't have to accept every invitation, especially the closer you are to a loss. If this is just a recent loss, we'll talk about this here in a minute, but most people are totally understanding of you passing on an invitation. Most people are just wanting to make sure you feel that you're welcomed and that you're not a stranger, and they're not making you some type of alien here. Most people are just being courteous. And now there are some people that are passive aggressive, and they are just belligerent and insisting that you come. But for the most part, most people are just being nice to you. You don't have to accept every invitation, and you need to protect yourself there. Now, 3 questions, though, that I think you need to ask yourself when you're avoiding social obligations. And the first one is this: am I afraid, running, or hiding? Am I afraid, running, or hiding? I don't think those are necessarily good reasons to avoid social obligation. I think if you're saying, I just don't have the strength to deal with that right now, I think that's a good reason. I think something like I'm going to see people there that are just going to spark too many memories. I'm not ready for that. I think that's fine. But I think if you're afraid, if there's fear there, or if you're running, you're like, I just don't want to deal with that anymore. I think that's a different scenario. I think if you're hiding and don't want to be seen, I think those are things you need to think through and say, maybe I do need to take that social obligation. Second question: am I saving or consolidating energy for other important events? You might say, hey, I don't want to go to these Christmas parties because I want to save what little energy I have for Christmas Day with my family. Or I'm in the church program and I want to give that my all. Or I have these other obligations. I think if you're trying to conserve your emotional energy for other things, I think you're right on par. But a third question I think you need to ask yourself every time you get a social invitation: will I feel better after the event? If I push through, will I feel better? And that's so much of the case, especially when we deal with the blues, melancholy, depression, fatigue. When we deal with these, it's amazing how sometimes when we push ourselves to do what we don't want to do, it's amazing how sometimes we just feel better. I can over the years, there's so many times where I've battled depression or depressive episodes or melancholy, didn't want to go to church, didn't want to be around people, but I knew if I pushed through and if I was just around people for 20 or 30 minutes, I would feel so much better. So consider that. The second area you need to protect yourself with, and we're kind of talking about loss and grief during the holidays. So I'm just giving a lot of information in today's podcast, and I hope this all helps you. But the second one is family dynamics. You need to protect yourself from family dynamics. Everybody grieves differently, and people are going to have certain expectations of you. You might be the person that's ready to move forward, enjoy the holidays, And there might be relatives that look at you and say, I just can't believe how much fun they're having already. It's only been 10 years since so-and-so passed away. They should still be, there's the family dynamic. So you're going to have people that expect things differently, and you're going to expect things, you're going to grieve differently. And there can be an expectation from other family members as other family members are celebrating Christmas and they're traveling abroad. I'll be frank with you. I'm just going to be totally transparent. That was a little bit what happened last year. Last year, 2 weeks before Christmas, my wife passed away. But you know what? Other members in the family had Christmas obligations. 2 of my family members had obligations. Well, 3 of my family members on my wife's side had obligations with in-laws on the other side of the family, and my in-laws had other obligations. I had to be a big boy and realize, everybody grieves differently. Maybe they can go to their Christmas functions and there's no problem with that. I have to give them that space. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Everybody grieves differently. Secondly, you have the right to boundaries of your life, your schedule, and your traditions. Don't let other families try to impose on you what to do with your life, what to do with your schedule, what to do with your traditions. Protect yourself from that, and give others the right to do that as well. Be honest with relatives, be honest with family, and you'll be shocked at how many times they'll just get off your back and cut you some slack if they know. I have a wonderful, wonderful brother who last year was pushing me to kind of do some things in the Christmas season, and not in a bad way, but just pushing me to do some things. And I remember one day I stopped and I just looked at him in the eye and just said, Al, I'm just not ready for that. And he was so gracious and he understood and he was like, hey, I get it. So sometimes just communicating that. And then finally, I want to say this about family dynamics. Being agreeable lays the groundwork for depression. If you're over and over just being agreeable, just giving in to give in, man, it's like that bottle that you shake up and the cork flies off and that just explodes. You're setting yourself up for an explosive episode or a depressive episode. Be careful of just overly being agreeable. Sometimes when you suffer loss and you suffer grief, you have to stand up for yourself and you have to, address people in a kind way, but a firm way, and not be agreeable all the time. There's another area, just a couple more areas you need to protect yourself in: financial expectations. Sometimes when you suffer loss and grief, everybody's a little bit different. Some people are left with a little bit of money from a windfall, maybe from an insurance policy, or the loved one that departed left good care for the family. Other times, some families have lost a major breadwinner in that. And so sometimes at Christmas time, there's this financial expectation of buying presents for everybody, and not just buying presents, buying home run presents. Be careful and set up good boundaries there of financial expectations. Maybe you can communicate that this year, for the extended family, there's not going to be much. Maybe just a Christmas card or something like that. And even within the own family, you might have to tighten the belt a little bit and so forth. But set up good boundaries with the financial expectations. And then finally, when protecting yourself for the holidays, protect yourself in the area of self-care. And what I'm talking about is make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're taking care of your personal hygiene, you're eating, and you're emotionally refueling. When I talk about emotionally refueling, I'm talking about time in God's Word, time in church, praising and worshiping God in song and music and hymns, and refueling yourself emotionally, taking time to go out to coffee with a friend, and recharging in soul ministry, one soul to another, and binding there. And so the last thing I want to talk about as we wrap up today's podcast, and I know I gave a lot of information, and I appreciate you guys staying tuned, but somebody out there is experiencing loss or grief this holiday season, or it's affecting them, and they've got their pen and paper out and they're just taking notes, and I appreciate you doing that. But finally, I want to just talk about the last thing you need to protect yourself from is you need to protect yourself from you. At least I do. A lot of people struggle, and one of the ways that you can protect yourself this holiday season, protect yourself from yourself, is remind yourself that lots of people struggle with the holidays. You are not by yourself. There's a reason why there's going to be several podcasts made about coping with the holidays. There's a reason why suicide numbers are going to be popping up on the screen on the television. There's a reason, because so many struggle with the holidays. Please, if you're struggling this Christmas season, don't think that you're all alone. It's just you. What's wrong with you? Be good to yourself. Remind yourself that lots of people struggle with the holidays. The holidays are a prime season to struggle with depression, melancholy, attachment issues, all kinds of different things that pop up during the holiday season. So protect yourself from yourself. Secondly, protect yourself and by reminding yourself you're not going to do everything perfect. You're not. You're not going to get. Some Christmases, because of the grief that you're bearing, the loss that you're bearing, you're just going to be totally checked out. You're going to be a zombie. And take it easy on yourself. You're not going to get everything perfect. You're probably going to get more right than you think you do, or you give yourself credit for. You know what? The kids are alive, aren't they? They're fed, aren't they? They're dressed, aren't they? They're going to school, aren't they? Give yourself credit for more than you are. Bills are paid for the most part. There's gas in the car. There's food in the refrigerator. I mean, you're getting some things right. Maybe I just rattled off 3 that you're not. Take it easy. Don't be upset there. But you're not going to get everything perfect. Some things are going to get left undone. Maybe this year the Christmas card is everybody in wrinkled clothes and messed up hair. It's all right. You're not going to get everything perfect. Maybe this year, Junior didn't get to go see Santa at Macy's like you do every year. It's okay. You're not going to get everything perfect, but you're going to get a lot more right than you give yourself credit for. And then protecting yourself from yourself means you might break down this Christmas. You might have a breakdown. You might melt down and cry and miss your loved one. Like it's only human. Those are human emotions. They're real emotions, and it's okay. It's okay. Protect yourself. You're going to break down, but don't pile on yourself. Don't get mad at yourself for breaking down. Don't get mad at yourself for being human. And then watch the vicious critic inside of you and silence him with reminders of God's love and mercy. We all have a vicious critic that lives inside of us. Sometimes we talk to ourselves worse than we would talk to our worst enemy out in the world. There's times, I've said this on other podcasts, there's times I've said things to myself that I would never even dare utter to someone else. And sometimes the most vicious words and the most vicious attacks are to ourselves. And I want to just say, when that vicious critic comes, silence him with reminders of God's love and God's mercy. God loves you no matter how difficult this season is of loss and grief. God loves you, and his mercy is great. He will give you the mercy that you need to come through the season, and not just through the season, but thrive in this season. And so I just want to encourage you as we wrap up today's podcast. Maybe you need to go back and re-listen to the podcast and get some of the information that we've given out. Attached will be some links that you can go back and watch some great videos. I think there's one by H. Norman Wright. There's a link there that helps you to process the holidays a little bit better. There's a webinar that I've attached there in the links, a 40-minute webinar that covers a lot more stuff than I did, and it's in more detail. But I just wanted to take one more podcast this season to address the issue of loss and grief during the holidays. And I'll be praying for you, and my prayer will be in general. It'll be in general for those who are struggling with grief and loss this holiday season. But know that at least there's one person that is raising you up in prayer. If you want specific prayer, feel free to message me on Facebook Messenger, or you can put a comment in the link, and I'll be more than happy to pray for you. But we're going to get through this thing together, because I believe in my heart that with the Lord, things will get better. Will we get it perfect? Never. But I truly believe that our grief can become manageable during the holidays if we'll move from remembering to honoring, and not just a selfish remembering of our loved one, but moving towards what brings honor to that loved one. God bless you today. Thanks for tuning in to Tears to Wells this week. I hope this has been a blessing to you. And as always, if you like the video, make sure to like that video so others will know, and it'll show up in their feed, and they can see this. And specifically, if you know somebody who is struggling, share this video with them by way of a message. Or if you know a group maybe that deals with grief, post this video in that group, and please feel free to share. My life, I simply want it to be a blessing to others who are going through a difficult time, using my hurts, my hang-ups, my habits that I've overcome over the years to be a well for others. And I think that's what you should do too. And that's what Tears to Wells is all about. Until next time, this is Danny Mendez here on Tears to Wells. Have a blessed week and a blessed Christmas. Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year. God bless you.